So talk about a situation, and it doesn't have to be for automation, because I think when we worked with you at ABB, I think you did the same thing on inventory, but where you simplified an overly complex process to make some major impact.
Oh boy, yeah, I can give you a couple of examples of that, and the really simple ones, these are not rocket science. It's just how you apply that, right? I'll give you an example. On my very early days of so ABB, I worked twice. When I was in India, and again my second stint in Zurich. And so when I used to be an engineer at that time, focusing on supply on the design of transmission distribution substations. So we had a customer in one city. We had the design center of ABB in another city. And the process was that the design guys will put some paper, they'll design something on a piece of paper. They will courier it to the design team at the customer end. The customer guys will have a look at that. They will give their feedback, mark it on the piece of paper, courier it back to them. And then back and forth kept happening because they had differences in opinion how things are happening. That whole process took so much time before you could finalize a design to start implementing it, and you have penalties on these projects if you are delayed. These are 18 months projects with heavy penalties for delays and everything. So a simple approach there was, hey, look, I had by the time moved from design to sales in the city where the customer was based. And I told these guys, look, why don't I, I come from your department, you trust me. If you trust me, I'll just go to the customer site, which is right next door to where I'm sitting in my office, and I'll work with them, and all the minor corrections that need to be done on the drawing, I'll take care of it face to face with them. And that itself cut my lead time by 30%. A very simple thing like that. And avoided all the back and forth. The customer was very happy because I could talk to them face to face, explain ABB's viewpoint, understand their viewpoint, and come to a conclusion. So that's a very simple example of it. Another example I can give is, we had this case with my other company where we had sourcing was centralized, but our purchasing was decentralized. Every site we had buyers who were buying the same material from the same supplier.
Well, hold on, so let me just clarify that. So you said sourcing was centralized. So the contracts with the suppliers was centralized, but then each site had their buyers.
Correct. The materials management was done by each site. So now the supplier was complaining, hey, whenever there is a capacity constraint, he does not know how to prioritize shipment to which site.
Okay.
And usually what was happening is the site that was most vocal used to get the material, even if they're filling up safety stocks, right? While the other site needs it for a customer order. So it was not a question of cost, it was a question of material availability to meet customer demand.
Okay.
And the complication was that these sites were on different ERP systems.
Oh, okay.
So how do you make this work? Now, one answer is to say, hey, let's bring them all onto single ERP instance. Now that I would have retired by the time.
Yeah, that's the expensive option. Yeah.
So we came up with a solution. We built up a central system, advanced supply chain planning system. We connected that with the legacy ERP system of the site. And on that central system, then we had these global buyers. We positioned them in Singapore and in India. And we said, hey, for supplier, these are your single window contact.
Okay.
So single point of contact for you. And then these buyers were creating purchase orders for the different sites based on true demand requirement for each site and placing it to the supplier through this central system.
That's interesting. So, did that mean that you didn't need the buyers at the sites anymore? How was that received?
Yeah, so that was a challenging part, right? So first thing was the general manager of the site saying, hey, you are taking control of my materials management
Right.
from me, and that is my bread and butter into my factory. That's my feeder into the factory. How will I run my factory base without that? So that was a challenge. So there's a change management process that we had to work through. We started small with a couple of sites with the general managers who were more willing and open to it.
Yeah.
Fail-safe arrangement that in case something goes wrong, the sites have still the control to manage it, and gradually build the trust that the system is working and more effective for you.
So, how long did that migration take?
So when we started with a pilot, and it's important to how you pick a pilot to Ed, Sometimes we pick pilots which are small and which do not move the needle and doesn't the excitement. So you don't want to fall into that trap. At the same time, you don't want a pilot that is so complex that it fails. So somewhere in the middle, we pick the right pilot with the right sides where we could move the needle but still manage the complexity of the pilot. So the pilot took us almost. So I started the pre-work and change management on it 6, 7 months before even we started uh, planning the pilot. So it was all bringing stakeholders on up to speed, talking to them, understanding it, and the whole change management that goes with it. So after 6 months of homework that was done, then we started into the pilot, and that pilot took 9 months after that.